Hello and welcome to the I Can Do podcast with Benjamin Lee. We're here to talk about tips and strategies to have an I Can Do mindset when it comes to faith, family, fitness, and food. Let's go. Here's your host, Benjamin Lee.
Hello and welcome to another episode of I Can Do, wherever you may be. Thank you so much for listening. I certainly appreciate your attention and you following along with this podcast. I hope and pray that all is well with you. There was something that I read earlier on LinkedIn, and I really don't do that much social media. I'm not on Facebook. I believe I did a podcast you can listen to called Delete Facebook. I'm not on Instagram. I'm not on Twitter, but I do get these pieces of news on LinkedIn, and there was something that I read that caught my attention, which I thought I would share with you. I thought this was really interesting, where there was an article about fake commutes. So what's happened since the quarantine that began last year and how everything has changed with Zoom. And there's another article that I read too called 322, which is talking about the new kind of work week, where a lot of people are in favor of, I think it was going to the office 3 days a week, working at home 2 days a week, or maybe it was vice versa, and then taking the weekend off. I think that's a great idea, and I think one of the things that is going to continue to stick as we move forward in 2021 and beyond is this idea of working from home. So the article that I read earlier, it talked about this idea of fake commutes and how it's important to use that time that typically you would have had or that we would have had driving to the office. So let's say, for example, if you had a 30-minute commute every morning or a 45-minute or 90-minute drive or on the train or wherever you may be, what's happened is that time has kind of been just eliminated, or it's been used now for additional work. So a lot of people are getting burned out where they are starting work earlier and now they're working later. And so everything is just kind of a blur. I was talking to someone and I took a week off 2 weeks ago, and it really kind of felt like any other week, right? Because I'm not really trying to do a lot of travel. And there was still work that I needed to get done as a preacher. I'm still preaching every Sunday and for Bible classes and things like that. So there are still deadlines that I had to hit. So this is happening to so many people where the day just kind of blurs together. So we have to be, and if you listen to my last podcast, we have to be intentional. So this idea of the fake commute is simply the idea of that time that you typically would get in your car or on the train or subway or Uber. Use that time for yourself. So be intentional and use that time to work out, meditate, pray, spend time with family, maybe even get a little bit organized. So instead of kind of just allowing that time to blend in with the rest of the day, that's where we can get this margin. I read this book a number of years ago called Margin, and it's a great book. I would encourage you to check it out. The idea is that we just need some more space. You know, when we have a lot of debt, we don't have margin. So when an emergency happens, we're just pressed against the wall and everything is urgent. Everything has to be done and we don't have enough money. And so the pressure and anxiety goes up. Well, we need this margin. Well, the same is now true working from home with Zoom calls, homeschool, things that are still being done online, kids still going to school via the internet. So a lot of people are struggling, and rightfully so, because it's so challenging and there doesn't appear to be these gaps or these segments of our days. And so what this article was talking about that I really appreciated was, well, use that time that you typically would commute and use it for yourself. That's what you were doing anyway when you were in the car. You had that time to listen to a podcast. You can always listen to the I Can Do podcast. I don't know if is that bad for me saying that? I mean, you're already listening to it right now, right? You can listen to the Marvel Fan Show podcast. That's a podcast that I like. Or you can listen to the Ultra Speaking podcast. That's another podcast that I like to listen to as well. There's hundreds or thousands of podcasts. Or, you could even create your own podcast with that time that you have in between with that fake commute. It's another way to gain or to get more time back. But we really are going to have to be intentional. So we still have the same amount of time. The pressure is now just different. And so what if you gave yourself that space? What if you gave yourself that space at the end of the day where you go outside for 30 or 40 minutes and you get on your bike and you unwind and then you come back home and kind of reset? If we're not putting these, what's the term I'm trying to figure out? If we're not making a distinction with our time and how and when we're doing things, then I think we're going to really struggle. Another way that I think this will look like is, and it's not just necessarily with the fake commutes, but the idea like with my cell phone. So I have taken off email on my cell phone. I've taken off the email apps on my iPad. Because what I'm doing is I'm checking my cell phone, then my iPad, then I go to my desktop. So I'm checking things multiple times, and that's just taking more time away. So I still need my email for the time being, but I'm trying to make it very distinct that this is the spot in my office that I will check email, period. Well, now we can do that the same way with our commute time. So the 45 minutes that we got back, or the 90 minutes, what if you went back and just pretended, hey, I got to go to work. I got 45-minute drive, and those 45 minutes, you get to decide what you're going to do. Exercise, maybe even sleep in if you need to, right? Read that book, catch up on the podcast if we want to watch a show, but something to just change the pace. And maybe that's how you can keep that I can do mentality. To stay strong in your faith, to spend that time with your family, to invest in your health with your fitness, to cook the meals that are going to be healthy that you can eat, that are going to help you to stay strong. That's where we win the day, the week, the month, 2021. So, enjoy that fake commute. And while you are enjoying that time, be sure to listen to yours truly, okay? In all seriousness, please listen to the podcast. But in all seriousness, enjoy that time and give yourself that space and give yourself that margin that you deserve and certainly need. And I think great things will come from that. I really do appreciate you listening and your support. Please leave me a rating and a review. And remember, I can do, and so can you.